Hey guys, it's Rat Party with a YouTube video. Today I'm going to be talking about sketchbooks, and specifically my old high school sketchbooks. For context, here's my current sketchbook. It's a Electrum. One day I'll do a tour of that one. Also, make sure to subscribe if you aren't already. I'm working on making a lot of new videos. In general, I've noticed there's a kind of trend for two different schools of thought for why you should keep a sketchbook. And the first idea is basically that a sketchbook is for quickly recording ideas and experimenting. And this kind of thought process is like, just try a bunch of stuff out. You should thumbnail in your sketchbook. You should write down ideas for bigger projects in your sketchbook. There can be writing. There can be a lot of loose stuff. It doesn't have to look pretty, because a sketchbook is an extension of your brain. That's kind of the first school of thought. The second one is that it's like a little portfolio that you carry with you, and you can make it really pretty, put a lot of time into it. It's very nice to look at, you can show people, you can use it for portfolios, all that stuff. And a lot of people keep two separate sketchbooks for these different purposes. I've seen a lot of people who have one sketchbook that they're like, this is my shit sketchbook. This is for being messy and just writing stuff down. And this is my other sketchbook, and it's perfect. And I redo the pages if they're bad. As you can see, in these older sketchbooks, I definitely think I lean more towards the first one of, they're mostly doodles. They don't really, there's a couple like more put together pages in the sketchbook, but a lot of it is just doodles from school, doodles from cafes, writing ideas down, all that stuff. And my most recent sketchbook, my current sketchbook, I like to kind of have a balance where some sketchbook pages are really thought out and the composition is nice, and I like putting time into those. And the reason I have sketchbook pages that are really pretty is because I just like it. It's fun to look at. It's nice when you show people, you can kind of impress them. But also about half of the other pages are notes, or when I'm studying for a test, I'll write down notes for school, or like my schedule for the day. Like, a lot of it isn't even sketchbook stuff, but I like having a balance. But yeah, but in these older ones, it's definitely more idea driven, or like my little characters that I'm doodling. There's also this kind of debate with how personal I should make it. If you use your sketchbook as kind of a diary, like I sometimes do, it can be challenging to see how personal you really want to make it, because you don't want to like stop yourself from making whatever you want to make. So I end up kind of in this in-between vague zone where I'll make art kind of about how I'm feeling, but not with it centered around specifically me. It's more of a personal call, I think, over like how many people do you think you'll be showing your sketchbook, and if you really care or not. Yeah. But for an artist, regardless of how you use a sketchbook, like your exact purpose, there are some things about owning a sketchbook and keeping it and consistently using it that are really valuable, and that's why I think every artist should keep a sketchbook. So one of the main things that I love about having a sketchbook is you get to experiment with materials. And as you can see, this current sketchbook I'm looking through is a MUJI notebook, and it fell apart. I went through this phase where I was using very cheap sketchbooks because I didn't want to buy expensive ones, and I think the sketchbook was about $2. It's not even a sketchbook, it's a notebook. And I would pile on watercolor, and the paper would crinkle and fall apart. The cover fell off this one. But it's fun to just kind of experiment, see what you like. One sketchbook that they swear by won't work for you. There's definitely a lot of the sketchbooks that I use in this video that people recommended to me, and I tried them and I gave up halfway because I really didn't like the paper. So yeah, that's something you can use for a sketchbook, is experimenting with materials. I use a lot of different materials, as you can see. Lots of pen, marker, I think that's highlighter right there. I also used it for storyboarding, as you can see. I took a lot of film classes in high school because I wanted to be either an animator or a storyboarder. And before that, I wanted to be like a director or a cinematographer. So there's a lot of storyboards in these old ones as well. Another use for sketchbooks is that when you apply to art school, you can actually use a lot of the pages for your portfolio. What I did is, with my most recent sketchbook right before college, I took a bunch of the pages, I scanned them, I put them in one big PDF, and that was one of my pieces for college. And I think colleges do like to see it. They like to see that you can work with a lot of different materials, and that you have ideas, and that you just love to draw. Another great thing about keeping a sketchbook is it really makes you feel like an artist, and that's kind of a silly thing to say, but when I started using a sketchbook, and I think about middle school, that's when I really decided I want to be an artist. I want to draw. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do yet. I think I wanted to be an animator first, but there's an early version of Rat Party there. You start getting more serious about it. The more you keep a sketchbook, the more you're going to draw, the better you're going to get. And that's another great thing about keeping a sketchbook, is that you can see your own progress, and you're not comparing to other people, you're comparing to yourself. And making art in general is kind of an up and down process. You might feel like you're getting better, then you might feel like you're getting worse, but when you have sketchbooks and you look back at them, you can see in general your progress is getting better. And it's very discouraging sometimes being an artist and not seeing your progress, but I think when you have sketchbooks and you keep them for a long time, you can really start to see your patterns and your growth, and it's really nice to have. It's a good record of how far you've come. I've noticed also that keeping a sketchbook helps me consistently draw. When I didn't have a sketchbook, I wasn't drawing as often, or I was only doing digital art, so it was only when I was at my computer that I was drawing. And the problem with that is that you can't really decide when you're going to be most inspired or most creative, because that just kind of happens randomly, or you see something and you're like, this is inspiring to me, and when you don't have a sketchbook, you can't really jot that down, and you eventually might forget about it. But when you have a sketchbook, you can record it kind of and come back to it later if you want, and I think that's very valuable. It's also convenient because, I mean, you can get any kind of size of sketchbook, some that aren't convenient, but I like to keep it pretty small. I think I have one bigger sketchbook that I use for if I want to make more finished stuff that's, yeah, it's a little less convenient though. I like keeping mostly smaller sketchbooks because they're convenient. You can put them in your pocket. I have this tiny bag that I put my sketchbook in. And I just take it wherever I go, because you never know, really. And I think you're more likely to use it if you bring it with you, just at the back of your mind. Yeah. Some of these older sketchbooks are a little bit out of order, I think. It's hard to tell. I made little pins with my characters in it. I would just print my digital art out and paste it in these ones, which I think is a little bit funny. It's another MUJI notebook that fell apart. We're getting into the older stuff. I can't exactly remember if this was technically middle school or high school. It's a lot of these I did in the summer before high school. So, as you can see, we start to get into Copics. I had a lot of Copic markers. And you can kind of see my development of materials. Over here, I was using almost completely just pencil. And now I don't really use a lot of pencil in my sketchbooks. If I do, I'll use like colored pencil or like mechanical pencil. It's like a different color because I think it's more fun. And it doesn't smudge as much for some reason. A lot of these pages got really smudged or faded over time. It's just interesting. I hardly ever use pencil now, and almost all of these pages are pencil. And almost all of these pages are characters and not from life, which I also think is interesting. As I got older, I wanted to draw more from life, even though my style isn't really realistic, I would say, at all. Drawing from life is super important, and by having a sketchbook, I was able to just bring it to class and draw people while they weren't looking, which I think in the long term was really good for my art development. This is a Moleskin. I never use Moleskins now. I just hate them. I don't know why. I really hate Moleskins. I think it's like they're too thin or something. Like the paper is too thin and the aspect ratio is weird. Oh yeah, this is old. Lots of Copics here. This one is super old. That's from middle school, that drawing. I don't know how that got in there, but yeah. If you've gotten this far in the video, congratulations. Consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. I'm planning on making a lot more videos soon, so you're not gonna want to miss out. Yeah.